Hi everyone, this is a video about a commission that I got not that long ago. So welcome to my commission process. First I started out by printing out the design that I made and cutting it out so that it fits on my board perfectly. I'm gonna go ahead and open up my board, and I bought this one at dickblick.com. I really like the quality of their boards. There's a whole bunch that you can pick from, different sizes, different thicknesses. You could also get some that are already gessoed and primed and ready to go, but I like to sand my own boards. So here you see me sanding the board down. I have two different types of sandpaper. One is a little bit finer than the other, and I do this so that I can get a really smooth surface, and I brush off that dust that comes off. I sand again, and then I make sure to clear off my surface, make sure that there's no dust around because I don't want that to get mixed into the paint. And then I continue sanding and sanding until I get the surface as smooth as I want it to be. This process probably takes me about 30 minutes to about 45 minutes. I just make sure to do a really thorough job. You really don't want to skip out on this step because it's really going to make a difference in your final piece. I have this big 3-inch brush that I use to gesso my boards, and I use a big brush because it makes it so that there's not as many streaks on the board. And I use a little bit of gesso and some water, and here I forgot to sand the sides because I decided that I was going to paint those white as well instead of just leaving them bare. So I quickly sanded those down. Once again, I'm just cleaning off the board. I pour my gesso into this little container, and then I also pour some water in there to kind of loosen it up a little bit. I don't really need it super thick at this step. I just kind of do it to kind of fill in all those crevices. I always make sure to do it one way so that there's not a bunch of strokes. And I let it dry in between each coat. I make sure to do the sides because I'll be painting those as well. Sometimes I leave the sides just plain and wooden depending on what the client wants. Once again, it's all about what the client wants. You can try to suggest things to them, but make sure not to be pushy because ultimately you're painting a piece that they want. So although I would have done some things differently with this design, I ultimately went with what the client wanted. So now you see me gessoing it downwards instead of from left to right, and that's just to kind of fill in any of those brush strokes that are still there. And I make sure to gesso the sides as well. So here you can kind of see the design already because I actually messed up. I traced the design onto the board, and then I tried to paint white all around the design, and it really didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. So instead I decided to paint it all in some white titanium white golden acrylic paint to really give it that beautiful white clean surface to work on. And it's okay to make mistakes, you know. This is just another way to kind of learn for your next project. So here you see me using a little bit of transfer paper. The way the transfer paper works is there's a layer of graphite on the bottom layer. So when you put your design print on top of the transfer paper and you trace it, it's going to transfer that design down because the graphite's going to transfer down to the wood board. Hope that makes sense. So here I'm taping it up to make sure that it doesn't move, because if it moves even a little bit, it just kind of makes the proportions not the way that I want it to be. And I use a really thick, sturdy ballpoint pen because that makes it the most clear, and it really helps the graphite to transfer the best. In my experience, I've tried to use thinner pens, but it really doesn't work out as well. And you gotta press pretty firmly, so don't use any pens that you really like, especially like a soft tip pen. Just use like a really sturdy, cheap pen. It doesn't even need to have any ink on it, you know? It can just be like a hard, thin thing. And if you guys have any questions about my commission process, I'm actually making a video all about your first commission, and that will hopefully answer a bunch of your questions. So at this point, we're just going to be untaping the tracing paper, and as you can see, it traced the entire design down. So now you can really easily be able to paint on top of it without trying to guess and all that kind of stuff. So as you can see, I have another layer of gesso that I'm applying, and this time I'm not mixing any water into it. There's a little bit of water already in there, but I want a pretty thick layer of gesso for this, and the reason that I put this layer on is so that the graphite doesn't smudge all over when I'm trying to paint, because that the graphite from the tracing paper that I use, it smudges really easily, and sometimes there's these like big chunks of graphite that kind of like get traced down. As you can see in like the center, those little dots, those are all chunks of graphite. So I make sure to put down a layer of gesso, and then I move on to the next step, which is me painting and drawing in the design. And as you remember, I actually tried to paint white all around, and that didn't really work, so I decided just to paint the entire thing white. And I can still kind of see the design still through the white paint, but not really. But it was enough for me to kind of go off of. But I really didn't like how it looked when I tried to go around the design. So I just kind of use this white pen to kind of clean up any edges, make sure it's really, really nice, because a black and white painting is really easy to see the mistakes on, right? So I just make sure to take my time and really get the lines to be the exact way that the client wanted. And as you can see, this is step 3 with a little boba cow. Do you guys like boba? I really like boba a lot, especially brown sugar boba with coconut milk. And I recently discovered there's this boba drink where it's creme brulee and boba and milk, and it's so good. So just kind of go ahead and take your time filling in all the details, and making sure that you really put in the effort to do what the client has asked you to do. Since you are an artist, I'm sure there's going to be things that you're going to want to do differently. For example, like doing things in your style or adding like a little special touch to it, but try to stay to what the client has told you to do, because they're the ones that are paying for it. I have this ruler that I use. It's just like a really small stainless steel ruler. It's actually really sharp, but and I really like to use this when I'm trying to make lines really crisp, but I need to make sure that it dries before I move the ruler, or else it spreads the paint. And I'm using paint pens, by the way, and I'm actually making a video on all my supplies in a little bit, so look out for that one. Next step is drawing on those music lines. As you can see, I use a little piece of cardboard as a stencil to get those lines on the board so that it looks really neat. And at this point, I decided to write the John 3:16, which is a Bible verse that the client wanted me to add into the board, and they kind of wanted it in like a cursive style like that. And with the white pen, I'm just kind of cleaning up any spots that I see that I'm not super happy with, because it's okay if it's not perfect the first time around, just as long as you take the time to go back and clean it up and make sure it looks really good. At this point, I'll be adding on the music notes, and in the background over there on the left side, you can actually see a little sneak peek at a future video that I'll be making, and it is some custom headphones, but don't tell anybody. So here I'm kind of freehanding the music notes. I actually have a picture of this entire design right in front of me, so I'm looking back and forth at it to make sure that it's what the client wants. I actually put in a little bit of my own touch, and if you play out the music notes that I drew, it plays the Moonlight Sonata. Although it's only a couple notes, if you play the beginning of the Moonlight Sonata, it's very recognizable. So my client really likes the piano, so I thought this would be a nice little touch. She kind of gave me the freedom with that. I really liked using these little paint pens because they're very fine. It's really easy to control. It's a lot easier than like a skinny brush. But one problem is that if you try to make a line or a circle or just a shape in general too quickly, it just kind of splatters black paint. And this was my first time using these, so I didn't know that. So I had a lot to clean up on this board to make sure that it was just really clean black and white, you know. But I do like the pens. I think I need to look into different pens that don't have that. And I currently actually have one that's like a felt tip paint pen, and that one's really nice, but it is pretty thick compared to this pen that I'm using right now. Just a quick note, I actually forgot to film the process of me varnishing the painting. So that's something that you should do as soon as you're done with everything and it's all dry. Just go ahead and varnish the painting. The varnish that I use is a satin varnish, and I do about 2 or 3 layers, and then I let it dry. I go ahead and package it, and then I send it off to the client. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys, if you like the video. And if you have any questions about my process, let me know down below. Here's actually a sneak peek of my next video. It is a painting. Thanks for watching.